Thank you, Scott. My name is Nick Hudson. I am a criminal justice policy analyst at the ACLU of Texas. And it's a privilege for me to be here because I actually went to church, a Christian church here in Texas that had a tradition of justice activism. So I really appreciate what Texas Impact does, and thank you all for having me here. I passed around a handout. I'm not sure if everyone has it, but part of my work, I wanted to talk to you about a few of the initiatives that I work on with the Texas Smart on Crime Coalition. So the Texas Smart on Crime Coalition, and this is the bulk of my work at the ACLU. The Texas Smart on Crime Coalition is a left-right, that's the right one, yep. Is a left-right coalition. It's diverse. It includes the Texas Association of Business, the ACLU of Texas, the Texas Public Policy Foundation, a conservative think tank, the Christian Life Commission, Prison Fellowship, R Street has joined us, and I may be missing one, but I hope I have. And Texas Criminal Justice Coalition, in Goodwill, Central Texas. So, so we work on issues that safely reduce mass incarceration. And I say safely because most of the reforms that we're pursuing this legislative session are actually projected to both reduce crime and save the state money. Because one of the things we've learned is that when you put low people with minor offenses in prison for a long period of time, they can actually kind of harden into and commit more serious crimes in the future. And so I just wanted to talk to you about a few of the proposals that we're working on. There are bill numbers attached to these because there are actually several bills that cover each of these different areas. But one of the things that we're working on is safely managing addiction through rehabilitation and treatment instead of incarceration. And so there is actually a bill number for this one. It's House Bill 2398 by Representative King. Phil King, Antonio Thompson, Parker, and Burnett. And the problem that this is trying to solve is that today in Texas, tens of thousands of people are arrested each year for nonviolent drug possession offenses. And just the use of our criminal justice dollars on arresting those people, it's a huge cost. And then 7,000 people per year are actually put into our state jail system. Our state jail system is we have kind of two prison systems here in Texas. There's the regular one that everyone kind of knows about, and then the state jail system. It was created separately in 2003 in order to treat people with high needs, so people with drug addiction problems. But what happened is the legislature really never funded the system. So what we ended up doing is warehousing people and not providing them treatment. And these are the people who probably need treatment and rehabilitation the most. And so this has contributed to this, the state jail population has the highest rate of recidivism, the highest rate of people, or rearrest rate. They're the highest rate of people coming into contact with the criminal justice system again in the future. And it's a 62% rearrest rate for this population compared to 30% for the regular state prison population. And it costs the state of Texas about $60 million per year. So we're paying $60 million a year for a 62% rearrest rate among these people, and we're not actually treating the problem, the root cause of the crime. So we also know that just harsh penalties for drug addiction for people who have problems like that, it doesn't actually work. It doesn't solve the problem, and they just end up back in the criminal justice system. So HB 2398 would reclassify certain low-level drug offenses. So if you have a sugar packet equivalent, like less than a gram of controlled substances, it would actually make it a Class A misdemeanor. So it's still a criminal penalty, but it moves it down once. But it reduces the penalty in such a way that you can spend a year less in prison as a result of these particular offenses. What we hope to do is to take the money that we would save from reduced incarceration and then pour it back into treatment so that we can actually solve the problem and get people the help that they need. So that's kind of our thinking and the coalition's thinking around the safely managing addiction to rehabilitation and treatment. We're kind of calling it the SMART Act, Safely Managing Addiction to Rehabilitation and Treatment Act. And so we are optimistic about the chances of that passing this legislative session. We have a lot of bipartisan support on this and a broad coalition of supporters. One of the other things that we are working on is increasing education and training, job training. So one of the other things we know works in criminal justice is that if you provide people with job training, they're less likely to commit crimes in the future. And so what we want to do is make it to where if people have low-level offenses, they could they could choose to go into one of these vocational reentry training programs for a shorter period of time than they would go to prison, and then in exchange, they would have the total time they would spend under correctional control, is kind of a jargony term, is reduced, but it means they're less likely to come into contact with the criminal justice system in the future. And that also, by reducing incarceration, would save the state some money. One of the other things, and this one is like personally, I had a family member who he was 17 years old. He had done something stupid, but it wasn't a really serious crime. He had broken into our stepfather's home. But he was 17 years old when it happened. And he was then arrested, and he was interrogated without a parent or a guardian or an attorney present. And an officer forced him into confessing to a crime he didn't actually commit. It increased the category offense. He ended up spending years in prison as a result of this. And so what happens in Texas today, if you're 17 years old, you actually have no right to a parent or guardian, and you have no right to have an attorney. Well, you have a right to request an attorney, but it doesn't happen automatically. So many 17-year-olds don't know you're supposed to do that. So what we hope to do is to raise the age of juvenile jurisdiction in Texas, meaning that 17-year-olds would, instead of going into the adult criminal justice system and not having a parent or guardian present during those kind of interrogations, they would go into the juvenile justice system, which actually has better outcomes. Part of the problem that we're dealing with, one of the issues, is that it's actually a little more expensive to put people into a rehabilitation-focused juvenile system than it is into the punishment-focused adult system that doesn't provide a whole lot of services. And so that's one of the issues that we're working on this session, is trying to figure out a way to fund what we actually believe could long-term save the state money, but there's an upfront investment that would need to be made. And so we're working on that this session. So it's raising the age of criminal responsibility for juvenile jurisdiction. Another one, and this interacts, and I'm going to talk for a moment about the Sandra Bland Act in a moment, but this kind of interacts with Sandra Bland's experience. Sandra Bland was pulled over in, I think it was Waller County, and for a failure to signal a lane change. She was eventually arrested. There was a tough interaction with an officer. They had traded some words, and then she ended up, she was incarcerated. She was in the jail cell, and she ended up hanging herself. And one of the tragedies of that is it was a failure to signal a lane change. Why would you be in jail for an offense like that? And so one of the things we hope to do is end reduce jail for like non-jailable offenses, for minor offenses like failure to signal a lane change, failure to use a seatbelt. Those minor traffic offenses, we hope to kind of reduce the contact with the jail system. We want to keep people working just keep people out in the community instead of putting them behind bars for those sorts of things. And so this driver responsibility program has had this is a program that it was created in 2003 to fund trauma centers. So we had a budget shortfall in 2003 here in Texas. And in order to close that gap, every legislator was thinking creatively, and they thought, let's incentivize responsible driving by increasing punishment for certain traffic offenses. But the way they did this was you have to pay a surcharge, an additional fee on top of your regular traffic offense. And so these can range from anywhere from $100 to $2,000 per year for 3 years. So you can end up getting and it happens for DWIs, but it also happens if you get a certain number of points on your license. If you're speeding a few too many times and you travel a lot, it's not too hard to get to 6 points on your license, which is the threshold where these types of fees would be triggered. And what happens is a lot of people just can't pay. They can't pay for these fees or fines, and so they end up not being able to pay. And then when you don't pay this driver responsibility surcharge, you end up you can have your license suspended. And so this program has actually ended up putting more unlicensed drivers on the road. We've had, and there was actually 1.7 million Texans have had their licenses suspended as a result of this program. And just keep in mind, there are 12 million licensed drivers in the state of Texas. So it's a sizable chunk of people who drive in Texas have been impacted by this program. And so you're seeing Republicans and Democrats really concerned about this program because it's impacting their constituents. And so we're working on that this session as well. And the last one, this is one I've been working the most on, and this deals directly with probation. You hear the number, we have a lot of people in prison, but not much attention is given to how many people are on probation. Probation is, we have around 150,000 people in prison. There are more than 600,000 people on probation or under correctional control. That includes the prison population, and people on probation or parole in the state of Texas in a given year. And more than half of the people who enter our state prison facilities actually haven't committed a new crime. They've actually they have been sentenced or adjudicated, or maybe they're on a deferred adjudication, which means the judge, it's just a probation. So you could be incarcerated if you don't fulfill the terms of your probation. But half the people that go into our state facilities haven't committed a crime. They're on probation, and then a sizable chunk of them just they commit a technical violation, a rule-based violation, and that's to be distinguished from new crime violations of probation. And these technical violations can be showing up late to a meeting with a probation officer. It can be failing a drug test is a common one, or an alcohol test. There are many conditions that are imposed upon people who are on probation. And so what we hope to do, and Louisiana did this in 2007, we hope to cap the amount of time that people can go back to prison for these really minor violations at 90 days. And so when Louisiana did this, they actually saw a 22% decrease in the new crime revocations as a result of the imposition of this policy. They also saved about $18 million. So it's like a smart on crime, cost saving, and crime reduction measure. And it also enabled us to reserve prison beds for the people who have committed more serious crimes. So those are some of the smart on crime initiatives that we're working on, that I'm working on at the legislature. And then I also wanted to just touch on the Sandra Bland Act. This is, I don't have the bill number in front of me, but I think it's 2720, HB 27, SB 2720. You know, the issues that I spoke about that were highlighted by Sandra Bland's arrest and death are really stark reminders that we still have work to do in criminal justice here in Texas to keep everyone safe. And so the Sandra Bland Act is a proposal that would give officers more tools to keep communities safe by expanding de-escalation and mental health training for law enforcement, training them how to interact with people who are experiencing a mental health crisis. It would also expand pre-booking diversion. So it would mean that fewer people would go into jail in the first place, and it would steer them to the civil penalty, it would make it a civil penalty, so you pay a fine or a ticket or something like that. So, and that would help people who are experiencing mental health issues from going into jail in the first place. So that's another component of the bill. It also addresses over policing by limiting consent searches and arrests for non-jailable offenses, these traffic fines with like seatbelt violations and things like that. And so we think that these reforms will reduce jail populations, route people living with mental illness into services rather than jail, and hopefully we can prevent suicides in jail and prevent another Sandra Bland tragedy by improving practices inside the jail, improving on our placement of people in the jail in the first place, making better decisions about who we send to prison or jail in the first place, and then making sure that we're reserving those spaces for people that actually pose a public safety threat. So those are some of the proposals we're working on. I'm happy to try to answer any questions. I'm working in depth on a few of these proposals, and then I'm more kind of a 30,000 foot view on others. So I can do my best, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Question in the room?
Did you have the numbers for the studies you guys still have for the first one? Did you have the numbers together?
I do. I pulled it up in preparation. So reentry proposals, and there are many bill numbers for several of these proposals because each of them kind of tackles a different aspect. But on the reentry side, that's the second one. So the top one's 2398. The second one, the reentry bills we're working are SB 1011, HB 3687, HB 2676, HB 3130, and HB 1426. On raise the age, I think the main one that seems to be moving right now is HB 122. That's a bill by Harold Dutton. He's a chairman of the Juvenile Justice and Finance Committee. And it's actually been kicked out of his committee. It got voted out, and it should be scheduled for a floor vote pretty soon. So they are thinking about issues to advocate on. It's a really good one. And then we're also on the probation measures. The one I'm most familiar with and working with on the most is HB 3289. And this is by Republican chairman of the House Corrections Committee, Chairman James White. And we're working, and then on driver responsibility program, there's a whole smattering of bills. They're like 7 or 8, and it's, I think SB 90 is one of them. HB 2068 is another. So those are some of the bill numbers. It's kind of overwhelming, and I actually have like a few that I'm tracking in my head, and the others were just, yeah. So those are the bill numbers.
Take a question in the room?
Well, yeah. I'm just curious. What are the chances of getting anything?
So,
or any of them good?
Yeah, I actually think all of these bills actually do. And the reason is we have been, there are a few reasons. One, Republicans are kind of steered away from the tough on crime stuff. Democrats too. There's been more of a, especially in a year where there's a tough budget year like this year, people are looking for like cost-effective proposals that would reduce the money that we spend on stuff. So I think that two of the bills that would actually save money that I think have a very good shot are HB 2398. That's the reclassification, or the safely managing addiction through rehabilitation treatment bill. And the other one I think is HB 3289. That's the probation bill. And that would reduce incarceration and save the state quite a bit of money. We spend about $45 million per year incarcerating people for these low-level technical violations. The other ones, I think some of them are tougher. I think that one of the issues with the driver responsibility program, this really terrible program that both parties dislike at the legislature, is that the money from this program is actually going to fund hospitals that are doing good work, because we tried to figure out a way to fix this budget gap in 2003. So we kind of shot ourselves in the foot. And so we're working really hard. We're working alongside the hospitals, trying to figure out a way to not harm them and to discontinue this program. So I think funding is always a major challenge to some of these other reforms. But each of these, I think, has a pretty good shot and bipartisan support.
What about the hiring? Giving people a chance to hire?
Yeah. So the question was, what are we doing on legislation that would help people get with convictions and records get jobs? So I want to make it really clear that I'm not speaking on behalf of the SWAT on Crime Coalition in any of this, but particularly on this, there's some disagreement on our group. But one bill that would actually move us backwards is a bill called HB 577. This is a bill by a representative from actually southwest Austin that would make it to where employer, so Austin last year passed kind of a first of its kind ordinance that banned the use of criminal history information in the hiring process until the conditional job offer stage. So, and a lot of places already do this. Home Depot does this type of Vanderbox stuff. Starbucks does this type of Vanderbox stuff. There are really good corporate entities that are doing these types of programs, but this bill would make it to where cities like Austin can't actually adopt those types of ordinances. And so we've been working, trying to talk to members about our concerns about this type of bill. One of the things that's really alarming about it is it allows the unfettered use of arrest records in the hiring context, which means you can have an innocent person who was arrested and then have his or her charges dismissed, and then they can have that arrest used against them in the hiring process. So that's one bill that we're really concerned about and working to improve. And then another bill that's on the other side that would kind of do the opposite thing, that would take this really fascinating policy that Austin passed, and it would actually make it statewide. This is HB 548 by Representative Deschitel. So there are bills on both sides.
One more.
We have one question on Facebook Live. First, I would mention, is the representative on that call document?
It is.
Okay.
I think there was one more.
They were turning off the House Bill 81 and marijuana.
Yeah.
Are you setting this policy?
So the Smart Crime Coalition isn't like behind the HB 81, I think it is, but the ACLU is, and I actually testified in favor of that bill in the committee. I think there's a good shot of getting out of committee. For people, the question was, what are y'all doing on marijuana decriminalization or legalization? HB 81 would make it a civil penalty for possession of small amounts of marijuana instead of a state jail felony, the system that provides more treatment and incarcerates people for up to 2 years. So.
Follow-up is on the fair chance housing. Is that also is the ability to rent properties or anything like that?
Not in those proposals, but I think that there are other proposals that deal with housing and like your ability to get like a credit card and things like that. So there are bills that do that. I'm just not that. I don't know them.
Are they going to be? Do they have sex with them?
I don't know. I'm not sure about those. I've also been working on the housing, on the hiring stuff, in part because when you talk to people who are directly impacted, people with records, it's often the case that the first need is hiring, and that's the most immediate. So, thank you.
All right. We appreciate the time. Thank you.